America's presidential campaign was already the craziest in my lifetime. Now even more madness. A third assassination attempt on the frontrunner, Donald Trump. Or actually, probably not. Police arrested an anti-government artist, Vem Miller, a Republican Party member who's run for election and posed with Republican figures, but was now caught with guns trying to get into a Trump rally in California. The sheriff in charge claimed it was an assassination attempt.
I probably did have deputies that prevented the third assassination attempt.
But Miller denies it and was freed on just a $5,000 bail for possessing a loaded firearm. So it seems no one actually does believe the sheriff. Joining me is the country's top foreign affairs writer, Greg Sheridan of the Australian newspaper. Greg, there is such a real hysteria around this election, and I can understand the sheriff's paranoia and need to, star in a TV series. But one thing now is coming through. Kamala Harris's campaign seems to be in trouble. Is that true?
Yeah, I think that is true, Andrew. I remain absolutely agnostic about this, whether this was an assassination attempt or not. In principle, I'd be inclined to believe the local sheriff before I'd believe the Biden Justice Department. But nonetheless, it seems unlikely. The polls have got a little bit worse for Kamala Harris in the last week. She's actually done a few interviews, and even though they've been absolutely softball, she's been horrifically terrible. I mean, it's a very low bar to clear, isn't it, being able to just answer a question like you and I are doing spontaneously on TV. And she's now leading marginally in the national vote, but behind in the battleground states. And on current polls, Real Clear Politics has Trump winning 6 of the 7 battleground states and winning by more than 300 votes in the Electoral College. Now, if the polls the last 2 times badly underestimated Trump's vote. If they've done that again this time, then the election's already over. Trump's won by a mile. But I predict in a column tomorrow the Democrats will give us a big October surprise, which I think will probably be some outlandish legal move against Trump, and they give us a big Election Day surprise because they're desperate to stop Trump. And the polls, they might not be underestimating Trump. It might be as close as the polls say, and it's absolutely on a knife's edge, I think.
How can there be another surprise, Greg? 3 alleged assassination attempt, president knocked out of the race on the first debate, blah, blah, blah. I mean, gosh, what qualifies as a surprise after all that? Meanwhile, a really serious development in Israel's war against Iran. Well, I think so. I'm interested to know what you think. A Hezbollah drone got through Israel's missile defense, hit an Israeli army base in northern Israel, killing at least 4 soldiers. To me, this shows Israel is actually much more vulnerable than most people assume to attacks by Iran and its terror proxies, and cannot sit around tolerating terrorist groups like Hezbollah taking shots at it from over the border. What do you make of this?
Well, I think you're right, Andrew. A few thoughts occur to me. One is that Israel is the only normal state in that region where normal people, Arab, Jewish, Muslim, Druze, Christian, can all lead normal lives. And the terrorists hate that. There's a strong theory, which I tend to support, that the reason Putin invaded Ukraine was not fear of it joining NATO or anything. It was fear of it becoming a successful European nation on his doorstep and a democracy which he couldn't bear. And the Islamists and the terrorists in Iran can't bear the idea of Israel as a happy, democratic, prosperous society. But Lebanon could be a happy, democratic, prosperous society now. It's a people of genius, a font of civilization. If Iran wasn't supporting and supplying and leading Hezbollah into terrorism, the West Bank and Gaza could be infinitely more affluent than they are now if Iran wasn't sponsoring the terrorism which come from those territories. Before there was a ceasefire in place when Hamas committed its shocking atrocities on October 7. And before those atrocities, Netanyahu was allowing billions of dollars of aid into Gaza from the Arab world, and he was allowing thousands and thousands of Gazans to work in Israel proper for Israeli wages. Now, if the terror threat had disappeared, if there were no Hamas, there would be complete normalisation, and that, you know, it could have been the Singapore of the Middle East. It's the terrorists and the Islamists who hate normal life. And one of the things they hate about Israel is its normality.
That's so true. And don't forget the Lebanese also, well, I'm sure you haven't, are great trading people as well. It could be anything. Israel, this has shocked me, Greg. Israel has learned that the United Nations is not just an incompetent organisation that cannot be trusted to keep the peace or its word, but I don't know, I think it's been treacherous. 18 years ago, the UN sent peacekeepers under an outfit called UNIFIL to southern Lebanon on a promise to Israel to keep Hezbollah terrorists and rockets well away from the border, a long way away from the border. They completely failed, as we know, from the rocket attacks. And now Israel has gone in to do the job instead, has found at one UN base after another, there were Hezbollah rocket launchers and Hezbollah tunnels right under their noses where the UN had promised they would not be. So close to UNIFIL watchtowers that it's impossible to believe the UN didn't know. And now the UN's complaining that two of its peacekeepers were wounded by Israel in the crossfire with Hezbollah. What does all this tell you?
Well, Andrew, you know, UNIFIL, the United Nations interim force in Lebanon, was designed to ensure that a United Nations resolution which provided that Hezbollah would withdraw north of the Litani River, 30 kilometres north of the Israel border, and would disarm. Lebanon, the only armed force in Lebanon was to be the Lebanese army. Now, UNIFIL has never enforced a single speck of that. In the last year, Hezbollah fired 9,000 rockets at Israel, and UNIFIL didn't stop one of them. Now, I don't blame those soldiers. I've met a number of them, as probably you have too, up on the border there, and they're nice blokes. I don't think they're pro-Hezbollah or anything like that, but they're completely ineffective. Now, Netanyahu and Israel are saying to them, well, for goodness sake, fellas, get out, because what Hezbollah is doing is locating themselves next to United Nations peacekeeping force bases. Now, these United Nations peacekeepers have never done one zot of good for anybody. They've had no effect on anything. They haven't stopped a single Hezbollah rocket from being fired. And Israel is saying, well, we are clearing out Hezbollah from our border now because Hezbollah wants to murder, rape and behead our people like Hamas did on October 7. So just get out of the road, go somewhere else, leave.
Exactly.
And the United Nations are saying, no, we have our sacred mission to stay here. Yeah, they are effectively being human shields for Hezbollah.
It is a disgrace. Look, Greg,
so why they don't just leave, I don't know.
Thank you so much. Well,
Thanks,
I think
Andrew.
I do know. Like I say, to be human shields. Greg Sheridan, thank you.